At Jersey Mike's, we take great satisfaction in getting that perfect meat slice. Yes. But we don't do it for fun. We do it for fresh. Because slice to order makes a sub above.
You're not really ready until you're safe. Summer safely and drive calm.
This is Cougar Sports Saturday. Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Got it for three. Cougars by 20.
Every Saturday, all year long. BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans. For Cougar fans. It's Cougar Sports Saturday. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On your legacy home of BYU Sports. KSL News Radio 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome in to another edition of Cougar Sports Saturday. Matt Baiamonte and Mitch Harper. Mitch Harper's back. He's sitting next to me here in Broadcast House. He's not coming from a lazy river like he did last week, but that was fun to have you a part of the show while you were still on vacation. But, man, good to be back. And as you pointed out on Twitter, it's full-on football mode now. We had a chance to go down to practice early in the week, so a lot of this show is going to be geared around what we saw down at BYU practice. We got some interviews. We'll get to you, Blake Freeland, Atunaisa Mahe, Neil Pau. We'll hear all of those. But football's back, man. It felt so good earlier in the week to be down at Provo, witnessing practice with our own eyes, and we're going to share with you everything that we saw.
Yeah, happy to be down there in person, and we'll unload all the details, the nuggets of info, everything that you need to know about this BYU football team as the 2021 season is inching ever closer. We're now, 4 weeks away from today, 28 days till the start of the BYU football season when they kick off against Arizona. Of course, we'll have full coverage of those games here on KSL News Radio, your legacy home of the Cougars. And we start things off with our takeaways from day one of Camp Kalani here in the leadoff.
The leadoff. A look at the stories making headlines right now. It's time for the leadoff on Cougar Sports Saturday.
Yeah, it was great to be back on that balcony at the student-athlete building. For all the fans out there that maybe remember those open practices back in the day. Remember when those were a thing, open practices?
I never missed those. I remember one year, I think it was the Jake Heaps, Riley Nelson battle, where there were two-a-days, morning, afternoon.
Yes.
Go in the morning, come home, take a quick nap, refuel, hydrate, and get back for that afternoon session on the balcony.
Those were good times. So we were on the student-athlete building balcony on Thursday watching day one of fall camp practice, and it was good to be out there because, whenever a training camp begins, all the hope, the optimism, it springs eternal. Everyone's just excited, and there's a lot of positive buzz around this BYU football program coming into this season, Matt, even though the national pundits would say, probably going to go back to 6-7 wins because you lose Zach Wilson, you get 7 Power 5s on the schedule, but there's this sense around the program that they feel like they can still accomplish some great things despite the losses of Zach and other NFL talents.
Yeah, and from what we saw, I was really encouraged with everything we heard at Media Day and leading up to fall camp from Aaron Roderick and Fesi Satake, because Aaron Roderick told us multiple times, and hopefully, if you want to go back into the past and listen to some great interviews, we were interviewing coaches all throughout the spring. Then we had Media Day, all worth a listen as you get ready for BYU versus Arizona, as Mitch said, in 4 weeks. And Aaron Roderick said, you can't win football games dinking and dunking. You can't just manage your game to a win anymore. And one of my biggest takeaways from what we saw was BYU is going to be aggressive. We saw all 3 quarterbacks, and Jaron Hall let it rip. There were 3 long passes in the final portion of practice that we saw. One of them, easily the highlight play, I think, so far from what we've seen in camp, a 45, 50-yard-ish touchdown pass to Neil Pau. There was a wheel route to Hikley Rapati that was completed, but he couldn't keep his feet in bounds. Then there was the final play that was broken up by Jalen Vickers, but Jaron Hall was throwing the football downfield. This team is still going to be explosive. They're going to take shots down the field, and so everything that we've heard up to this point was manifest in that media observation period.
Yeah, Aaron Roderick, first year fully as the offensive coordinator. It's not going to be labeled collaborative effort anymore. Aaron Roderick is the OC. And it was interesting, too, Matt, when he did say, when he was asked about his role, because you would think, this is the first year as the official offensive coordinator. He's like, we're doing the same things that we did last year. Jeff Grimes was an extra, and I'm like, we all kind of like talked about like what's the roles of everyone on the coaching staff, who's doing what, who's calling what. It was just interesting to hear Aaron Roderick say that. It wasn't demeaning to Jeff Grimes by any means, but yes, Aaron Roderick had full autonomy last year of the quarterbacks, and he had a big role in the offense last season as well, and obviously now he's overseeing it all, and he loves, Matt, the offense that he has this year. This is him on the depth of the offense coming into the 2021 season.
We've got a good tight end group, some good players in that group, and our receiver depth is the best it's been since I've been here. And then O-line-wise, I really like – we've got a big group of guys. There's about 6 guys that have played a lot that are proven players that I have a lot of faith in. And then after that, there's a lot of good guys to work with. We got to find out who those guys are, but the total number of them, it's higher than it's ever been too since I've been here. Like we've got 18 offensive linemen out there. That's a lot. All of them have a chance to play here someday. So we have to figure out who's number 7, 8, 9 in that group. But the top 6 are really good. I don't expect any drop off there.
It's hard to expect a top 5 offense, but the coaches are pretty optimistic about the personnel that they do have coming back to still put up some good numbers with this offense.
It wasn't all positive from our observations, and as you heard right there from Aaron Roderick, he feels good with 6 guys. We're going to hear from one of those guys at the bottom of this hour, 12:30. Blake Freeland will join us, talk about his development, moving over from the right side to the left side. It'll be good to catch up with. Probably one of the anchors of that offensive line. You got James Empey holding it down at center, but then that left tackle position is the next most important one. But one thing that jumped out to you and I both, and if you haven't had the chance to subscribe to KSL Sports, download the KSL Sports app, me and Mitch, we'll give you live reactions right after practice. We did that against day one, but one thing we talked about and I've still been thinking about is the offensive line is a concern. Now, that core group is good, and I'm not worried about that, but we saw with Jacob Conover in the second team in the media observation period, he was running for his life. It was hard for him to get anything done because he was constantly being flushed out of the pocket. So I do have concerns about the depth on that offensive line.
Yeah, I think it's valid, too. And I think even with the starters, I think that group's going to be very good. It was interesting, Joe Tukuafu started at right guard, not Connor Pay. But again, that's a battle that's going to be ongoing. Every single day they're going to compete. But still, you're just talking about guys being elevated to become faces of certain position groups. Blake Freeland's going to be, the number 1 left tackle to replace Brady Christensen. James Empey, he's the anchor. He's the foundation of it all, and that's great to have him back. But everyone's just got to be, elevate their game. Harris LaChance, he now becomes a full-time starter. I know he's played some spot duty in some games, but it's different when you are the full-time starter. Every single down, you're expected to be that guy at the right tackle position. So still some questions there. I like the fit of Darryl Funk, but you can't undermine the experience that Jeff Grimes had in the offensive line room and the impact that he made on the program at that position. You have to have success at the offensive line. That's the foundation for any team, but BYU more than most because of the commitment they've invested into personnel at that position. When you got 18 offensive linemen, you got to think that it's going to pay off and it's going to become a strength. So that is an area that's got to improve. But man, I love the talent at running back and wide receiver, Matt. Wide receiver to me is as deep as it's ever been in the Independence era. This is a loaded group with tons of potential. Neil Powell, someone that's going to be joining us a little bit later in the show, he was one of the stars of day one.
I'm feeling good about my Neil Powell prediction after that first day where I kept coming back to what happened at the end of 2020. Because for me, Neil Powell was far and away the takeaway from day one, in my opinion. He stood out. And it was also notable, too, that the quarterbacks were looking for Neil Powell, and they found him often. What he did at the end of 2020 was impressive, where he had over 300 yards receiving in the final 5 games. He had the touchdown, over 20 receptions. He told us afterwards, Mitch, that he's lost some weight. He's faster. He focused on being in the best shape of his life. I thought you could see that on that long touchdown that we saw. There was some separation there on the outside, and that was just a simple go route where Neil took off down the sideline, beat his guy, and it was a beautiful pass. Neil Powell is going to surprise people this year. I'm really excited to see what he can do because if you have him, Gunnar Romney, you have the Nakua brothers, and then maybe one other guy, you've got a 5-man group that I'm feeling dang good about going into this season.
Well, and Kalani Sitake noted to the media that, he's excited to see who the guys are that take that big leap, a la kind of a Zach Wilson, a Dax Milne, because a year ago at this time, no one nationally was talking about Zach Wilson. Even folks around these parts, some parts of the fan base were emailing Aaron Roderick saying, bench that guy, don't play him. Dax Milne was a relative unknown as well. So who's going to be that guy that emerges and becomes a face of the program that we're not expecting right now? Maybe it is Neil Powell. Maybe Dallin Holker as well can complement Isaac Rex. I'm very excited about Dallin Holker and his potential in this program. The fact that Aaron Roderick is saying it feels like he didn't even leave for a mission, that's reason for optimism, and it feels like he's already emerged as that number 2 tight end behind Isaac Rex. So, yeah, the personnel around this quarterback, they're good. The offensive good. The offense is just, they got a lot of talent. But I'm just going to say good because they still just got to prove it in games. Against Power 5 opposition, it's a level of competition that's got more resources behind them. It's not Texas State. It's not Western Kentucky. That is going to be something that we're all intrigued to see, and that's what makes this season so interesting is how much of last year was simply a byproduct of the schedule. Because if BYU reverts back to 7-5, 6-6, all the good fortunes you built from last year kind of go out the window. Yeah. And that's why this season is really important for the program and to change the narrative and the trajectory. Like, hey, that was not a fluke. That was real. That was tangible. And if you can get 8-9 wins this season, maybe 10, I mean, if you want to get really optimistic, that would be huge for the program going forward.
We'll talk to quarterbacks next, and we'll get your thoughts on the Cougar Sports Saturday poll. Do you believe that Jaron Hall can lead this offense to the same heights as last season? We'll talk about the quarterback room, Jaron Hall, and a lot more on the other side. Don't go anywhere. We're just getting started here as we're 28 days away from BYU in Arizona. It's Cougar Sports Saturday, powered by KSLSports.com.